Welcome to lesson 3, supply chain fundamentals. In this lesson, we'll cover concept of supply chain fundamentals, key fundamentals of supply chain management. Let's jump into it. Supply chain fundamentals refer to the core principles and concepts that underpin the effective management and operation of supply chains. A supply chain encompasses all the activities, processes, and entities involved in the flow of goods, services, information, and finances from the initial sourcing of raw materials to the delivery of the final product or service to the end customers. Of course, the concept behind supply chain is the act of transforming or the process of transforming raw materials into finished product and delivering the finished product to customers. And for that to happen, it takes connection of different firms or different entities playing different role, including the supplier of the raw material, the manufacturer or producer, and then you look at the distributor, and you look at the wholesaler, distributor or wholesaler, and then you have the retailer, and then the customer is between, as well as logistics and transportation. And so all those different people are playing different role. I mean, the different entities are playing different role within the supply chain process. And the purpose of all that is to ensure that goods or raw materials are transformed into finished product and deliver to the end customer for consumption. And so for this to happen, there's a fundamental that kind of drive, there's a concept behind the whole supply chain. And that fundamental has to do with the principles and the concept that drive that process of ensuring that all these activities, the processes, and the different organizations that work within the supply chain, they are able to transform raw materials into finished product and deliver to customers. There are a few things that happen within this process. One is looks at the flow of goods, okay? The flow of goods, taking it from raw material into finished product for end user. Then you look at services. Of course, there are a lot of services being offered, transportation and other services within the supply chain process. Then you have information. Of course, you have to use technology, information systems to communicate and coordinate and integrate different processes involved and all that. So there must be information shared across different parties. And in fact, if there is no communication or the information flowing is not effective enough within the supply chain, it can break the whole process and no one will be aware of what is happening on the other hand. And then the finances, of course, there will be transfer of finances from at different points, ensuring that the process is going on smoothly. That is the concept behind a supply chain fundamentals. Now let's look at key fundamentals of supply chain management that you need to know. Number one, integration. Integration is critical when it comes to supply chain because supply chain doesn't work in isolation. Supply chain is the connection of different stakeholders, the connection of different firms. And when we talk about the connection or integration, is looking at collaboration, is looking at how can the different stakeholders within the supply chain work together to ensure that the process or these different activities are done effectively to be delivered to customers, ensuring that goods, services are transformed to deliver to end users. So in this supply chain, what are some of the players or stakeholders within the supply chain that needs to be integrated in order to work effectively? Number one, you have the suppliers. Of course, we talked about this already. The suppliers are the individuals or organizations that provide the raw materials for transformation of that raw material into finished product. So the suppliers are there supplying to the manufacturer. And then you have the manufacturer or the producer. The manufacturers or the producer transform, these are firms or companies or industries that transform the raw materials into finished product that will be useful or consumable. And then you have distributors, or you could say wholesaler. The distributors or wholesalers are organizations and also individuals that are involved in providing or bringing the goods closer to the end user as well. And then you have retailers. Retailers are those who purchase or procure from the distributors or wholesaler to sell to the end user, which are the customers. And at the end of the entire supply chain, you have the customer, which is the final person within the supply chain. So when it comes to supply chain, it comes from supplier, okay, raw materials. Then it comes to manufacturer, transformation of raw materials, producing raw materials into finished product. Then you have distributors who bring the finished product very close to the consumers, and then retailers go to and bring it much more closer to the consumer. Then the customers end up in between. However, between these suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and customers, you have logistics and transportation. Logistics and transportation is the function of moving the goods from one point to another point. In order to reach to the customer, suppliers take the raw materials into the means of transportation. It could be by air, by road, or by sea. And so the supplier of the raw material transport, all right, the raw materials to the manufacturer. And the manufacturer will now transform the raw materials into finished product. And the distributor will also use transportation or logistical means to bring the finished product very close. And then the retailer will also move by means of transportation to get the finished product from the distributors or wholesaler to a closer point. And then the customer might also use the means of logistics to get that done. So it either be that you go to bar and then you use a means of transportation to get the goods at your place where you want it, or the final destination. And so these are processes, of course. These are activities within the supply chain. And for that to be effective, then it requires integration. That integration means bringing all the different people together, ensuring that there is coordination, collaboration, and everyone is playing their part effectively. Integration involves coordinating activities, bringing the different activities together, aligning the different activities. So it requires coordinating the activities, sharing information within the supply chain, and aligning goals to optimize the entire supply chain network. To ensure that the supply chain network is effective, taken from supplier, manufacturer, distributor, retailer, and consumers or customers, you need to ensure that the supply chain is effective. For that to happen, there must be coordination of activities. That means everyone should be able to coordinate. Everyone should be able to work together, collaborate together to ensure that the supply chain is effective and you are able to do your part very effective. Then you are sharing of information. Of course, we must share information throughout this process using technology, using information systems to ensure that we are informed at every step of the way in terms of the progress and all that. Then we look at the aligning of goals to optimize the entire supply chain process. So we all have goals to achieve. The raw material, the supplier of the raw material have a goal. The manufacturers have a goal. Distributors have goal. Retailers have goal, as well as customers. So we need to ensure that we meet the goal of every player within the supply chain, or every stakeholder within the supply chain. And that requires integration. Number two, visibility. Achieving visibility across the supply chain is crucial. This involves having real-time access to accurate and relevant information about inventory levels. Again, as I mentioned, if information flow is not effective within the supply chain, it can break the entire supply chain process. It can hinder production. It can hinder access to raw materials. It can hinder distribution. It can hinder retailing. And customers will also be hindered in accessing the product or goods that they need. So visibility can look at access, real-time access to accurate and relevant information about inventory levels. This will look at the amount of stock available. How can you be able to ensure that people are aware when it comes to inventory level? Then you look at production schedule. So this is where the stakeholders within the supply chain are aware of the different schedule for production. When they are aware of when they expect this particular product to be manufactured and produced. And then you look at transportation status. This is where you are using technology to track transportation. As your goods arrive at different points along the way, you are able to track and see in real-time status of your commodity or your goods. And then you see consumer demand. Consumer demand is where you're able to see in real time the consumer demand. Take, for instance, on a train, you can see the technology and you can see in real time, access to data that will inform you about inventory levels, inform you about production schedules, transportation status, and customer demand. You can control all that using real-time technology in the current age. Enhanced visibility enables better decision making. Of course, we'll make better decisions, and then we can also improve responsiveness and the ability to identify and address bottlenecks or disruptions. When we have effective sharing of information across different stakeholders within the supply chain, we're able to identify challenges, bottlenecks, and then we can improve on the situations and as well as solve issues along the way. Number 3, efficiency. Efficiency is a key fundamental of supply chain management, and this involves it focuses on eliminating eliminating waste. Of course, we implement supply chain. Remember, we said cost reduction, cost savings. One of the benefits of supply chain, we say, is cost savings. When we manage supply chain effectively, we are able to save costs. And of course, supply chain efficiency focuses on eliminating waste. We don't want to spend money without achieving the results, without being able to sell and get benefit in return. So our focus is to eliminate costs, is to reduce costs, and also is to waste rather, is to reduce costs on production. Okay, so we don't want to spend too much on production without getting the return benefit as well. So we look at something we call return on investment. How do we get the return on investment of our process? In terms of manufacturer producing in larger quantity, how do you ensure that you don't lose in the process? And how do you ensure you are able to benefit from the production and all that? So even distributors will also look at how do you ensure that the quantity of goods that you buy from the manufacturer can also be able to go. So just in time is also another way of how to measure efficiency. This looks at how effective or how timely we're able to meet up with the inventory management. And continuous improvement methodologies is also very critical in the supply chain. As you remember, we implement these processes and we learn from there. And after learning, we need to improve in the process. So we need to look at such methodologies such as Six Sigma. Or Six Sigma methodology is basically looking at product improvement. Okay, so this is the methodology that is used to improve product. So we can use this method, or we can employ this method to improve efficiency, to improve product delivery, and also improve timeliness as well. Number 4, resilience. Resilience is where we build resilience in terms of the dynamic and unpredictable business environment. Because there are a lot of challenges, a lot of uncertainties, a lot of risks within the business environment. And of course, we cannot easily predict, or we cannot easily tell the next course of action. And think about the issue of the Ukraine and Russia war that affected the entire globe in terms of supply chain. And we saw how Africa got affected by that emergency. And there are several other countries, even in Europe, that got affected by that emergency. So there are a lot of uncertainties, risks, and different unpredictable circumstances within the business environment. And some of these things are difficult to project as a business person. So you need that resilience in the whole supply chain process, because at any time you will feel discouraged, it might be difficult, and you feel that there is no way you're going to get the return on investment of your particular production. So you need to be resilient. Even you as a distributor, there will be a time where you don't see people buying that much, but you need to be resilient. You need to build that inner power or that inner strength, so you're able to navigate through the challenges and the difficulty in the business environment. Supply chains should be able to withstand and recover from disruptions such as natural disasters. So you need to be resilient when it comes to these different disruptions such as natural disasters. And of course, you don't have control over natural disasters, because they will happen and they will cause a lot of damages. And then you look at geopolitical events. Of course, these are political activities across the different landscape, and they will affect our activities and all that. So I mean, like issue of Ukraine, for instance. So Ukraine and Russia war, for instance. So these are uncertainties that will occur, and we are probably not aware, and we can't easily predict some of the issues. So we need to be resilient in the process. Then we look at supplier issues. There might be issues with supplier and making sure they supply you the raw materials in time. And you need to be resilient to keep pushing and keep being consistent in the process. And then as well, in manufacturer may have issue with production, and so distributors will have a delay of receiving the product, and you might have also the retailer having issue of accessing the finished product from the distributor because of the slow delivery from the manufacturing company. Then you also have customers suffering at the end as well to access these products as well. Then there might be increased prices and all. So customers will also have to be resilient in this process to ensure that they're able to meet their needs. So this involves diversifying suppliers. Diversifying suppliers. To reduce the risks or to be resilient in the process, you need to diversify suppliers. You need to be able to get as many suppliers as possible who will be able to meet your supplier needs. And then you also need to implement or put together risk management strategies in case these happen, in case of natural disasters. What are you going to do? In case of geopolitical events, in case of supply issues, what are the strategies you're going to put in place to able to mitigate that potential of the risks affecting your business environment or business operation? And then you look at developing contingency plans. Contingency plans are a plan B, or the plan of a course of action that we're going to take in the case of this plan. If it doesn't work this way, we're going to engage in this other way. So these are important ways to mitigate risks and also ensure that you are resilient in the business environment and you're able to move forward. Number 5, collaboration. And of course, supply chain can never work in the absence of collaboration. I talk about integration initially, and the collaboration among supply chain partners is essential for improving performance and achieving common goals. Remember, every player within the supply chain works to achieve a common goal, and that common goal is to finish product and supply to customers. And so, for us to ensure that is effectively done, for us to perform at different level, we need to collaborate. The supplier who supply the raw materials, you are very important. The supply of the raw material is very important. The manufacturer who transform the raw material into finished product is very important. And the distributors who take it from the manufacturer to bring it closer is very important. And the retailer who will also bring it from the distributors to the end point closer to the consumer is very important. And then the consumer who ends the whole process is very important. So all the different stakeholders, partners within the supply chain are very important. Not forgetting the logistics and transportation. They are very important as well, because without them, we are unable to transport or bring it closer to the consumer. And then every other thing that we use between the way, technology, all right, that we use to facilitate communication and information sharing is very much important. In order to achieve effective supply chain process, we need to collaborate. We need to work together as a team. The collaboration can involve joint planning, sharing demand focus, coordinating product production schedules, implementing collaborative technologies, and facilitating communication and information sharing. And then we also have sustainability as environmental and social concerns gain prominence. Sustainability is the foundation or fundamental aspect of modern supplier chains. Companies are increasingly focusing on reducing carbon footprints, adopting the green practices, ethical sourcing, and promoting social responsibilities throughout the supply chain. Technology. Embracing technology is crucial for optimizing supply chain operations. Technologies such as enterprise resource planning, ERP systems, supply chain management, RCM software, advanced analytics, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence, AI, enabled automation, data-driven decision making, and enhanced visibility. Customer focus. Throughout the supply chain, you should focus on customer because they are the end user. Understanding customer need, preferences, and expectations is crucial for designing supply chains that deliver value to customers. So customer centricity involves factors such as fast and accurate order fulfillment, personalized experiences, and proactive communication. In conclusion, these fundamentals of supply chain provide a fundamental for foundation for effective, efficient supply chain management with maximum customer satisfaction. Thanks for completing this lesson.